Welcome to the Schmoopydady streaming experience. I'm your host, as per usual, Schmoopydady. I'm a monthly Hearthstone and Wild Legend player who typically hits Legend first month, and after that I goof off. When I goof off, I play your decks, and some of them suck. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to do a quick video talking about common mistakes and or we'll call it intellectual differences I have with my chatters when they submit specific decks. The first principle I'd like to address is the lose to yourself principle. This deck was submitted by one NZT. Many of you know him if you've been around on my stream long enough for me to raid anybody with a pulse who's streaming Wild afterwards. But he submitted this extra large big shaman to me. And immediately what I think you'll start to worry about is, well, if it's extra large big shaman, what is Muckmorpher going to hit? Normally, that's a problem in and of itself, that if it's extra large, you're going to hit Renathal, but no NZT double down. You'll notice that we're running a Dirty Rat, 2 Bright-Eyed Scouts, a Cattle Rustler, Marithra, Theo. Anybody else that's a disaster? That's how many KT. That's how many hits that if Muckmorpher transforms into it, you instantly lose the fucking game. I told NZT if I didn't win with this deck that I was going to have to ban him on the spot. And I did. I high rolled. It even made it into a video because I got Ancestor's Call into the stupid bird, and the stupid bird happened to hit the good half of this deck. So first thing not to do, build in obvious anti-synergies to your deck where you're going to lose to yourself before your opponent has the chance to even beat you. Yikes. Another example of sort of losing to yourself or just sort of obvious building of anti-synergies, you'll notice we have a Hummel deck, and Union once sent this into me with lots of spells that don't have any goddamn spell school to begin with and aren't nature. So read the fucking card. Union would later go on to build actually a decent version of this deck, but like it's another thing that sends me around the fucking bend. How about missing key cards? This is my favorite thing to play whenever somebody submits even lock. Chat, have you been watching my material for long enough to know what card is missing here? Looks like a pretty good even lock, right? We've got the Gnolls, we've got the Giants. You might be like, oh, Molten Giant. No, Molten Giant really sucks. It's hard to get down. You know, we got Speaker Stompers. That's a pretty good card. Not the best card, but you know it's not the worst. Dark Alley Pact is great. Oh, man, Forge of Wills doesn't work anymore. Okay, we can get rid of Forge of Wills. Good job. Good catch, chat. I don't know. Let's put in 2 Announced Darknesses just for fun, right? Because it's funny. We'll get to the fucking funny later. Okay, what's missing? Do you give up? It's Battlegrounds Battlemaster. I don't know how anybody who has ever played Evenlock can forget to put this card in their deck. A lot of people, I think nowadays, build it as a novelty. They're like, oh, yes, I have never seen an Even Warlock in the wild. Let me build it and make Schmoopy play it, and haha. And the problem is like, if you don't even remember what was good in a deck or how a deck used to win games, that really bleeds through in the deck building sometimes because you forget key cards like this. I'm never playing Evenlock without Battlegrounds Battlemaster. Okay? So don't even fucking try it. You can go to hell. Missing key cards can also be a little bit less obvious. Very recently, this is still one of my contestants in Best Deck Survivor right now. And we've had multiple discussions already with Loran, who submitted it and didn't realize that Sir Finley of the Depths was not in it, and instead has a second Conjurer's Calling. But in this deck specifically, if I find myself stalled, right? I've drawn a bunch of cards, and I have not found my Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I have not found my Magister's Apprentice yet. Having Sir Finley of the Depths as an option to go on and flip my hand and to go find, playable cards is a huge advantage. Sorry, high end. There's this little bugger. So I would cut this in a heartbeat and stick in Finley. And we're going to set that aside for the very end of our video. Because otherwise, I think the deck is very, very good. Okay. Then my next favorite thing that people do is they say, it's funny. Right? They submit to me a deck and they don't have the appropriate power level in mind or the appropriate build or the appropriate approach. And their response is like, well, we're going to do it because it's funny. I am down to play like funny or novel decks, but they have to be built correctly. This is unfortunately was another, I think, Union Stray. Aggro fell spell. There's multiple things wrong here. The funny in particular that I'm looking at is the main deck Jotun, unlucky. The next thing I'm looking at is it's not Renathal, also unlucky. The third thing is it's not a Scythe deck. I think we should always be playing this deck as Renathal. We should always be playing this deck as a Scythe deck. One of those, obviously, you only have 2 souls since one of them's taken up by Renathal, but it's always Street Trickster and it's always Jotun for me because those have the most utility. Not Jotun. Street Trickster and Jace. 8-drop that repeats a bunch of spells. It's always those 2 for me in this sort of spell aggro-y type deck. Because Street Trickster has a giant ass and sticks on the board, and +2 spell damage is nothing to sniff at, especially in the burn deck, especially since it just sticks around forever and ever and ever. And Jace is like your I win card. You slam him down and he wins. Jotun, as much as I love having the signature, it sucks. It's not good. It was bugged at one point and had to be banned because it was too good. It was like making every spell you cast do the fucking thing. And, that it would be playable at that, but this is just not a playable card, as pretty as it is. All right? So don't give me it's funny. If it's not an appropriate power level and it's not appropriately executed, I really don't want to have to deal with it. Clearly better. This is clearly better options, and this is also going to double up as my infinite mana curve list. A lot of people submit me lists when if it's a bad list that's been submitted. There either are cards that are included in the deck that could be substituted that are clearly better options, or you look at the curve, and the curve is just an infinite curve. It's just a huge greed pile. There's not enough removal at the bottom. People are like, oh, I have all my favorite cards in here. And it's like, well, but where I play, you get punished for that. Specifically in this list, you'll see the bottom end is 2 Ultimate Infestations, 2 Celestial Alignments, and we have a Topiary for reasons. I feel like if we're going to play this deck, that's fine, but you instantly cut the Ultimate Infestations for overflow. And you might ask yourself, well, Schmoopy, why would I do that? I'm giving the opponent health too. Yeah, but if you really want 2 of these fuckers, or like you do one of these and you do one of these, like there's better cards that, yes, I'm drawing fewer cards maybe if I go with the Miracle Overgrowth, but that has more synergy with Lady Anaconda, especially post-Celestial Alignment. Post-Celestial Alignment, this costs 0. UI still costs 1. There's clearly better options that we could play in the case of, all my stuff costs 0 and we go. This is ignoring the anti-synergy, of course, the fact that you have arcane spells at all in the Topiary deck. But you know what? I can kind of get it because Sleep Under the Stars is so bustado, and if you really want to make all your green stuff 0, the Celestial Alignment, I guess, makes some sense. This deck also happens to be missing Pendant of Earth, which is huge if you're going to play, be misguided and play some sort of Mill Druid, because at least Pendant of Earth always acts as a 3-mana Reno that draws your Ceaseless Expanse. So that's another obvious package that's missing here that I don't know why it's there. I don't know why this is here. I guess for the Bran Astalor stuff. If we're doing Bran Astalor stuff, where's Aviana? Where's Floop Skloop? There are so many questions. Last but not least, this list got all the way up to 76, 79 on the EU server. And I call it don't knowing what's good. I think certain archetypes and certain decks are very good at doing certain things. And for me, one of the strongest things that Reno Lock can do is play Symphony of Sins, high roll the blue one, and play Sargeras on 6 for 3 mana. I think it's the single best pressure that you can put on as Arena Lock, since half your deck is fucking Tech W. I think it is game ending against aggro because you slurp up their board like with a straw. Like, there's so many reasons why you would never break this synergy. Now, admittedly, this deck is a little bit different. This deck is attempting to do some silly shit by basically having Glinda and as a combo in it. But I think this combo disqualifies itself in and of itself by breaking the Symphony Sargeras synergy. I would not play this deck on purpose unless I was specifically trying to make content doing the funny. And I don't want to do that because I think breaking this synergy is a waste of my own goddamn fucking time. This is ignoring the fact that, okay, fine, the combo's in here so you can get Agma, and maybe that ends the game, and you've got Glinda. But what about the other 9-drops? Let's say you've accidentally drawn Patches. You can also possibly get Ysera for 3 mana. I don't know if that's worth. I guess it's an okay tempo and body and push, but I think against aggro, I'd rather just have Sargeras every single fucking time. I don't know. I just this again was made by somebody who knows a little bit more about what they were doing because they took it to such a high level. But like in general, I would call that not necessarily. They knew that they were going for a very specific funny, but I see people unironically sort of shove it in and not realize the sacrifice they're making and what they're giving up, or they do and they don't give a shit, which is its own problem. The last thing that I hate that people argue or annoy me with are perfect 30s and perfect 40s. Right? I get into discussions about people sometimes about the last 38th, 39th, 40th card in an XL deck, or the 28th, 29th, 30th card in a 30 deck. I have my own preferences that I feel very strongly about at times. Sometimes I don't. You want to know what a perfect 30 looks like? I'll show you what a perfect 30 looks like. This is it. For me, this is a perfect 30. This is about as close to 30 perfect cards you can get in a Hearthstone deck list. Most deck lists have a ton of flex on the worst cards at some point or another. You can get away with playing a suboptimal list that's not the same 30 cards as everybody else 9 times out of 10, because based on where you're playing, there's different preferences for different players. If you're down in the gold range, if you're down in like the Diamond 5 range, you're seeing a lot of imbue mages. Honestly, for some decks, playing a Mind Breaker is not the craziest thing in the world to annoy the shit out of them. If you're bringing that Tech W and you're playing in the top 1K Wild Legend, that's probably not going to be as useful, and you probably are, the rest of the deck might carry you there because of that one card. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but you probably want to sub that in for something a little bit more useful. And if you get all the way up into the top 100, top 200s, and you start playing the same people over and over and over again some afternoons, you might make some really extreme deck choices that make a lot of sense given who you're playing against. So I don't really believe in perfect 30s or perfect 40s. I think this deck list is pretty close to a perfect 30. I think another example in the past of something that's been a perfect 30 was Questline Demon Hunter. The first time, KVLT was taking it to rank 1 legend after it was reverted. There are very few flex spots. You saw for months and months and months when people posted deck lists, basically the same deck list over and over again, plus or minus whether or not you were on team Fell Studies or team Consume Magic. It was like one of those two. You were like all full studies or you're full consumes. You did 1 and 1 and kind of split the baby. It was pretty close to a perfect 30. So anyway, this gets to keep playing, and I have to switch that card back because that's not how it was submitted. But anyway, this has been an example of videos. A little video series, part 1 of things not to do in deck building that annoy the crap out of me. And so what I'd like to do next is I'd like to make a little video on examples of good deck building and where you'd find that in modern decks. So if you enjoy this content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on my YouTube channel. And look out for part 2 of the series, which is going to be how to make good decks.